Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Surya Koti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarva Karyeshu Sarvada. Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gururdevo Maheshwaraha Gurur Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. It was on this day, the Ekadashi Tithi of the Shukla Paksha of Margashirsha month, 5,160 years ago, that Bhagavan Lord Krishna imparted the greatest knowledge to Arjuna. Warm greetings on the auspicious occasion of Gita Jayanti. The Bhagavad Gita is the essence of all the Upanishads, in fact, all the Vedas. It is the Moksha Shastra, enlightening us about the ultimate goal of life. It also systematically and emphatically establishes the very basics of our existence, giving us deep understanding about our own selves, the Almighty God, and the world around us. In short, the Bhagavad Gita is everything. There have been many ancient texts that have survived the test of time. However, the Gita stands out for its practicality and relevance, drawing from the infinite grace and power of Lord Krishna himself. Today, our Pratyaksha Guru, Sri Timappa Hegde Sir, will impart this knowledge in capsule form, revealing the greatness of the Gita and how we can immediately apply the teaching to better ourselves. Over to you, sir.
Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Akhanda Mandalakaram Vyaptam Yena Characharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Profound salutations to our Guru, Swami Paramarthanandaji, who has made the Bhagavad Gita and all the Vedanta so easily digestible that Tatpadam Darshitam Yena. He has opened our eyes to this knowledge, and any amount of words of expression fall short in our salutations to this great Acharya. Some time ago, I was requested to speak on the Bhagavad Gita for mind mastery and to achieve meaningful goals. That gave me an opportunity to look into the Bhagavad Gita to see where are those verses in the Gita which help us to have mind mastery. If our mind is under our control, sometimes you have seen a situation like this, where somebody is taking a big dog for a walk, and if the dog is very unruly, we wonder who is taking whom for a walk. So important that we have certain control of our mind. Our mind is the most powerful instrument that we have to accomplish any of our goals. We must learn methods to master our mind. It should be our instrument and not our master. It should be available for us when we need and for however long we need. Once we have achieved a certain mastery, the mind, which is actually a supercomputer, is now available for us to achieve meaningful goals in our life. So we will look at these two things, where in the Bhagavad Gita you will have verses which talk about mind mastery, and through mind mastery, how we can work on meaningful life goals. This is from the Upanishads, the Amrita Bindu Upanishad, which is also echoed in the Bhagavad Gita. Mana eva manushyanam karana bandha mokshaye. My mind can be the cause of my bondage. The same mind, when properly used, can be the cause of my freedom. We see this in the 6th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna says, Udaret Atma Anatmanam Na Atmanam Avasadayet Atmaiva Atmana Bandhu Atmaiva Ripuratmanaha, which means we have to lift ourselves by ourselves. We are responsible for ourselves. That means somehow we need to be able to train all the instruments available for us to be able to achieve whatever we want. And also there is a warning. Whatever is your greatest strength can be your greatest liability. Our mind is our greatest gift, and the same mind can be our great liability too. Right in the beginning, when Sri Krishna starts his teaching from verse 11 of the 2nd chapter, where he empowers Arjuna to get back to the objective that he is in the battlefield, and Arjuna is dejected. At that time, he uses all his powers to empower him, to tell him about the importance of mind mastery. This is a verse worth remembering. Matra sparshasu kaunteya sitoshna sukha dukkadaya agama payino anityaha tam stitikshasva bharata. A very reassuring message for all of us when we go through difficulty. The message is very simple, but very profound. Whenever there is an interaction between the sense organs, matra sparsha, when our sense organs interact with the sense objects, you will experience heat, cold, sukha, dukkha, happiness or sadness. But the reassuring message is agama payino anityaha. Anitya, they come and they go because all of these are temporary. And the only way to handle is when there are upsetting or difficult situations, dance titikshasva bharata. The key word to remember is titiksha or mental strength. 3 areas in the Bhagavad Gita which talk about mind mastery for a very specific purpose. One is in the end of the 2nd chapter, the Sthita Prajna portion, where Arjuna asks, when a person is spiritually evolved, can you give me a certain lakshana, a certain characteristics of such a person? And Sri Krishna uses this question to say that once we have spiritual knowledge, what are the indicators or marks of a person? What are the lakshana? And he also uses it to tell us what are the sadhanas, how to become like a spiritually evolved person, how to attain to that state. The similar message happens towards the end of the 12th chapter, where Sri Krishna is talking about bhakti. And here he talks about para bhakta, the highest form of a bhakta. And again in the 14th chapter, where Sri Krishna is talking about a gunatita. And all these are areas which indicate these are powerful verses which tell you how when the mind is under your control, you will be able to achieve so many things. When the mind is not under your control, that could be the seed of destruction. Verses 62 and 63 are sort of role model verses. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha. When a thought which is particularly not good to be entertained upon, a disturbing thought, dhyayate, when you meditate, when you think of that again and again, then what? Sangha sanjayate kama. When that thought is there for a long time, kama or a desire comes. And once the desire comes, and if the desire is not fulfilled, then there is a sequence of actions which is krodha. Krodhat bhavate sammoha. Complete delusion. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. That means smriti, my memory, my intellect gets affected. Spriti brahmhat buddhi nasha. That leads to the destruction of my intellect. And buddhi nasha pranashyati. How from the thoughts itself, it leads to a complete destruction. Now you heard that Uddaret, you have to lift yourself by yourself, which means Sri Krishna is saying, I have to use my own mind to overcome my mind. Now, this is certainly difficult. Here is where bhakti comes in. That is why whenever a person is a devotee, then we have not only our own efforts, our efforts are important, prayatnam is important, but for a bhakta, you have the dual engine of prayatna plus grace. And when there is grace and all our efforts are going to be successful. So Shri Krishna keeps on telling you, Daivi hi hesha gunamayi mama maya durattaya. My maya is so powerful, it is extremely difficult to cross. So he gives you a solution. Mam eva prapadyante, mam eva etam tarantite. Because of my, if you surrender to me and using my grace, you will be able to overcome. And therefore, this is the two-pronged. That means we have to put in our efforts and along with the effort, be able to handle grace. Whenever we see the text of the Bhagavad Gita or any picture of the Bhagavad Gita, one picture always is there of Shri Krishna as a charioteer and Arjuna in the chariot, and you see those horses. Now, the greater description of this symbolism comes in the Kathopanishad, where the chariot represents our human body, the horses represents the sense organs, the reins which control the horses represent our mind, and the driver who's controlling the reins represent the intellect. Now, as long as you have somebody who's controlling the mind, if the mind is not under proper control, now the symbolism here is, if I have to go in the right direction of my life, that means if my life has to go in this right direction, I have to put Shri Krishna or my higher intellect in the driver's seat. And in verse 61, it is very nicely described. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparaha. If you are able to control all your sense organs and put me on the driver's seat. And that is Shri Krishna's advice for all of us. Once you have the higher intellect, once the mind is governed by the Shri Krishna principle, then you have clear choice whether I want to go along the worldly path or I want to use this opportunity of the human birth to take the spiritual path. Let us look at what Adi Shankara says about the Bhagavad Gita and about using the Bhagavad Gita to be able to fulfill our goals in life. Before he makes his commentary on the Bhagavad Gita, Adi Shankara gives a certain bhashyam called the Avatarika Bhashyam, where he says the Bhagavad Gita is Veda Sara. The Vedas are voluminous. Lord Krishna has condensed the entire Veda into both the Veda Purva and the Veda Anta part into 700 verses of the Bhagavad Gita. And Adi Shankara also has said that the study of the Bhagavad Gita is as good as studying the entire Vedas. Before we study any text, the ancients have spoken about something called the Anubandha Chatustaya. The four important features are, who is the Adhikari? That means, what is the eligibility of for whom is this Bhagavad Gita? Vishayam, what is the topic? Prayojan, what is the benefit? And Sambandha, the relationship between the Adhikari and Prayojan, the Vishaya and Prayojan. Now, this is what he brings out in the Avatarika Bhashyam, that the Adhikari are those people who are keen on self-knowledge as a means to attain to moksha. He also says the Bhagavad Gita is a moksha shastra. Prayojan is Gita Shastram is Param Nishreyasam. It helps you to attain to the highest. And Adi Shankara says, now if the Bhagavad Gita is able to give you the highest, why settle for anything lower than the highest? The highest means, the Parama Purushartha means the infinite. And true happiness Yo vai bhuma tat sukham. It is only in the infinite that we have happiness. And bhuma, or the infinite, includes dharma, artha, kama also. Looking back, and this is what the various commentators have said, that the message of the Bhagavad Gita is the same as that of any of the Upanishads, which means our essential nature is divine, or aham brahmasmi. Now that means when we study the Bhagavad Gita, we have to learn to discover who I am, or what is my true nature. Which means if you study the Gita systematically, the commentators will point out the message that comes is Tat Tvam Asi, the Mahavakya that comes in the Chandogya Upanishad. This is something that we have studied many times. That is, the Gita can be divided into a series of 6 chapters. Prathama Shatkam, chapters 1 to 6. The Madhyama Shatkam, 7 to 12. And the Antima, or the Charama Shatkam, from 13 to 18. The focus on the Prathama Shatkam is about our true nature, and I will help you to look at 1 or 2 verses which talk about our true nature in the Prathama Shatkam. The moment you come to the 7th chapter onwards, there is a shift from Tvam to Tat, the nature of God. And the moment you enter into the 13th chapter, the focus is on Asi Padartha. That means the essential nature of us and the essential nature of Bhagwan is one and the same. Although there is an overlap throughout the Bhagavad Gita, you will see certain sadhanas come predominantly in these shatkams. The Karma Yoga is there in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th chapters. Upasana Yoga comes from the 7th to the 12th chapters. And from the 13th chapter up to the 18th chapter, you will see a predominance of Gnana Yoga. If there is an additional topic which is brought out in the first 6 chapters, is that if you want to attain to any useful goal, it is your effort. You'll remember those words, Uddaret Atmanam. The next 6 chapters talk about being able to access grace. And from the 13th chapter up to the very end, Sri Krishna talks in the last Shatkam about the importance of values. So if you see the Bhagavad Gita, you will be able to pick up a lot of topics on karma, on bhakti, on meditation, on ethical values, and so on. But Adi Shankara says, if you want to take the best of the Bhagavad Gita, you have to use what is the Tatparyam. The central theme of the entire Bhagavad Gita is self-knowledge as a means for liberation. Now, let us see the definition of Karma Yoga, and the best and the simplest form of definition is given in the Upadesha Sara of Bhagwan Ramana, and Karma Yoga is defined as Ishwararpitam na ichchaya kritam chitta shodakam mukti sadakam. Whenever we do Karma Yoga is a method of purifying my mind, making my mind eligible for Gnana Yoga, and therefore Karma Yoga paves the way to Mukti. And how do you define Karma Yoga? Whatever I do, Ishwararpitam, na ichchaya kritam. That means don't have a clinging for the outcome. All I can do is and to have Ishwararpitam, Ishwararpana Bhava, and the Prasada Bhava, and that is the definition of Karma Yoga. If you come to verse 50 in the 2nd chapter, Karma Yoga, as I said, is there in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and the 6th chapters. But in the 5th chapter, there are a lot of verses on Karma Yoga. And this particular verse, which I would think is the climax of Karma Yoga. And the verse goes like this: Buddhi yukto jahatiha ube sukrute dushkrute tasmat yogaya yujyasya yogaha karmasu kausalam. Kausalam means skill. And here Sri Krishna is saying, what is the skill in action? Now, whenever we do any karma, any action willfully done will produce punya or papa. That means a good act generates punya, a bad act generates papa, and therefore, over a period of time, we accumulate a lot of karma. Now, if you are in the spiritual path, then we know we are not here for punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam. We would like to exhaust our karma in this life itself. And therefore, all my karma from now on should not generate any further karma. And therefore, the real skill in action, as spoken here, is buddhi yukto, with spiritual wisdom. And what is the spiritual wisdom? It is jnana karma sannyasa. You have to work like a jnani, as a sannyasi. That means you have no axe to grind. There is nothing that I want out of this karma. I'm doing it because it has to be done. I allow this action to happen without, very importantly, a sense of I am doing it. And when I do it in such a manner, ube both, sukrute, dushkrute. I give up both. I give up both punya and papa. And this is elaborated very beautifully in the 4th chapter as Gnana Karma Sannyasa. Now, this verse in the 5th chapter talks about how your mind can be your best friend, your mind can be your worst enemy, but you have to learn to lift yourself by yourself. That means prayatna is important. And this you will see in the 6th chapter, verse 5. Again, there's a lot of questions sometimes asked. Why did Sri Krishna focus on Arjuna to give this wisdom? And it is said, if you ask for it. Now, Sri Krishna or the Lord wants to know that I want it, and I want it badly. All the teachings in the Upanishad happen when the student comes to the teacher and says, please teach me. Shishyateham shadi mam tvam prapanna. You have to surrender to a teacher and you ask the teacher specifically that this is what I want. A nice verse in the Mundaka Upanishad, which says, Pariksha lokan karmachitan brahmana. Now, if I want spiritual wisdom happens to those people who have examined their life, who have done pariksha, and to see what is that I have acquired through karma in this life and in all my lives. And the understanding is nirvedyam, a form of vairagya, a sense of detachment, because now I know na akrita kritena, that through finite activity I will never attain to the infinite. Tad vijnartham. Once I know that through my actions alone, doing more and more of the same thing, I am not going to get Bhuma or the infinite. I proceed to a teacher. And what kind of a teacher? A Shrotriya Brahmanishta, a teacher who is one with the Brahman and who has the ability to share his understanding with you. Guru meva abhigachet samit pani. When you go to the Guru, you carry something with you, symbolically samit pani, which means my ego. Offer it in the fire at the Guru's place and say, I am ready to learn. In the 1st chapter, as I said, the focus is on Tvam Padartha, about the true nature. And this begins right from the beginning in verse 20, when Sri Krishna says, Na jayate mriyate va kadachin. I have been there from the very beginning. If there is a beginning, I will be there till the very end. Nityaha shasvataha puranaha na hanyate hanyamane sharire. This bodies will come, bodies will go, which means Sri Krishna is clearly trying to indicate to Arjuna and through Arjuna to all of us, our true nature is something that survives this body. That is the nature of the Atma, which is always there, even whether the bodies come or the bodies go. Again, Nainam Chindanti Shastrani. This real me cannot be destroyed by weapons or any of the other elements. I cannot be affected at all because I am non-material and of the nature of consciousness. With that, we complete the Prathama Shatkam, where there's an emphasis on Karma Yoga to understand that the true nature is about my nature, Tvam Padartha, and about Karma Yoga Sadhana. The moment we come to the second Shatkam, you see the emphasis is on Bhakti, or the better word for that is called Upasana. All chapters except the 8th chapter, there is a lot of emphasis on knowing God. Only when you know someone, you will get to grow to love that someone. So right from the beginning of the 7th chapter, Shri Krishna offers on his own, without any question from Arjuna, Jnanam teham sa vijnani. I will teach you my lower nature and my higher nature. Yet jnatva, once you get this knowledge, there is nothing else that is worth knowing. The same thing happens at the beginning of the 9th chapter. You will see both these chapters are very similar. Shri Krishna again begins, Idam tute guhyatamam. I will tell you the greatest secret. Pravakshyam anusuyave, because you are non-critical. I will give you jnanam and vijnanam. Yet jnatva mokshase ashubhat. With that knowledge, you will be free from everything that is inauspicious. So the focus here is knowing about the nature of God, the lower nature that you can see and experience, and that is the beginning of the vibhutis of the Lord in and everything that you can see, and thereby through the vibhutis it paves you for Vishwarupa Ishvara Darshana. And then there is of course the higher nature of Lord, which is very nicely brought out in this verse, Mattaha Parataram Nanyat Kinchid Asti Dhananjaya. And the focus is my sarvam idam protam sutre manigana eva. I am that something which holds the whole universe together, but in a very specific manner. Just like the string which holds all the beads together, I am all pervading and I am of the nature of two things. It is called immanent and transcendental. Immanent means it is the very essence, it is in and through, and yet it is beyond. Two words which we have to remember. Bhagavan, or the higher Krishna principle, is in and through every, it is outside me, it is inside me, just like space. It is all pervasive. It is very close to me. It is closer than the closest. That is what Atma is all about. And yet it is of a higher order of reality, and therefore it is not available for any of my sense organs. And that is the meaning of the word transcendental. Now, how do we learn to discover the Lord? Through various vibhutis. Rasoham apsu kaunteya. Each time you taste water, each time you come across these various vibhutis, let it be a signal for us to be able to see Sri Krishna's principle initially through vibhuti and later through the Vishwarupa Ishvara. Once bhakti becomes there in our heart, toward the end of the 12th chapter, Sri Krishna gives some very glorious verses on the indicators of a para-bhakta. And what are those indicators? Tulya ninda stuti mauni. Whether you are praised or criticized, such a person is really unaffected. Mauni, he is silent. Santushto, he is complete with himself. With what? Yena kenachit. Whatever is available, he is complete. Aniketaha, there is no dwelling for him. Why? The whole world is his dwelling. And watch this word, Stita Matihi, whose mind is very steady. That means how important is the steadiness of the mind to be able to become the highest devotee of the God. And he says such a person who is able to calm his mind, make his mind an instrument, bhakti mam me priyo naraha. That person becomes very dear to me. This is another very beautiful verse. Adi Shankara has given a lot of commentaries on this, but Swamiji has also spoken. I want you to focus a lot on this verse. Bahunam janmanam ante jnanavan mam prapadyante vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. This is extremely difficult. What is extremely difficult? After many lives, a Gnani, a spiritually evolved person, surrenders to me. Vasudeva Sarvamiti. This is just a statement which says everything is Vasudeva. And Adi Shankara gives a nice commentary on what is the meaning of the word Vasu and Deva. Vasu, the word Vasudeva can be split into Vasate and Deva. The word Vasu means existence. Whenever we say I am, the word am means existent, and it can be taken as Vasate. The word I means consciousness or Deva. Deva means the illumining principle. So therefore, the word Vasudeva means conscious existence. It can also be called Sat and Chit. Vasate means Sat, Deva means Chit. And what is this Sat Chit? My true nature is Sat Chit. And what is Sat Chit? Ananta Sat, Ananta Chit. And Bhagwan Ramana in his Upadesha Sara again says, Sat and Chit are not two different things. Sat eva chit chit eva sat. And he asks in the form of a question, Sattva basika chit kvave itara. Where is there sat apart from chit? That means consciousness and existence are not two separate things. When we interact, it looks like there is existence in front of me and there is consciousness here. And that is because whenever we are awake, the mind tends to separate existence from consciousness. And Bhagwan says, Satyahi chit chittayahi aham. My true nature is Sat Chit Ananta. In the second Shatkam, we have to learn to access grace. And there is one beautiful verse which I have taken not from the Bhagavad Gita, but from the Gita Dhyana Shlokas. And this has come from Madhusudana Saraswati, a beautiful verse. And if you use this verse, this will help us to access grace in all our efforts. We know whenever we are struggling to do some things, my own efforts will not do, let me bring in grace. And grace makes the impossible possible. Mukam karoti vachalam pangam langayati girim yat kripa tamaham vande paramananda madhavam. The person who cannot speak can become eloquent. Those who are physically challenged can even climb mountains. And this is possible because of the grace of the Lord. Towards the end of the Bhagavad Gita, you have such beautiful verses on bhakti. And this is a particularly beautiful verse. Study these verses, meditate on them, and see what Krishna is trying to say to us. Man mana bhava, man mana bhava. Mad bhakta bhava. Now become my bhakta, man mana bhava. Keep me in your mind. Mad yaji bhava. Whatever you do, do it as an offering for me. Ishwara arpana bhava. Mam namaskuru. Make your offerings or adoration to me. Mam eva ishyasi satyam. This is my promise. You will reach me. Te pratijane priyosmi. You know, I love you so much. And this is my promise to you that you will reach me. Now, look at the kind of words of the Bhagavad Gita, how Krishna offers it to you. This is the similar verses there in the end of the 9th chapter. Now, let us come to the third Shatkam, the Antima Shatkam. The moment we enter here, suddenly you see we have finished the nice part of the Bhakti Yoga, and we have to use our mind to understand what is this Gnana Yoga. These verses are all the Upanishadic verses. Shri Krishna declares, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata kshetra kshetrajnor jnanam yat jnanam matam mama. You know, see his humility. He says, matam mama. This is my opinion. And what is Shri Krishna's opinion? Shri Krishna's opinion is two things. That we have to know the clear distinction between Kshetram that I see and Kshetrajnam, the experiencer. And this is a Mahavakya, where he says, Kshetrajnam chapi mam vidhi sarva kshetreshu bharata. In every body, the one awareness principle is none other than me in each one of you. So you are listening. It is the Shri Krishna principle which is listening in you. I'm able to speak, and that force has come because of the Shri Krishna principle. I know, I'm aware, and that is Kshetrajnam in all of us. In the same chapter, another beautiful verse where he reiterates what he already said in this verse. Gneyam yat tat pravakshyami yat jnatva amritam ashnute. Gneyam. Gneyam means something that is worth knowing. And if you know that, you attain to immortality. And what is that worth knowing? And what is that worth knowing is the Kshetrajnam as distinct from Kshetra. Initially, we make a distinction between whatever I experience is not me, and I am the experiencer. Now, whenever we do something, that there is something that I is an object of my experience, and I am the experiencer, we create what is called adhyaropa apavada. We create something and then we have to negate. So adhyaropa is something important to understand. That is how the Vedanta is taught. And this verse, which brings in adhyaropa apavada, is also there in the 13th chapter, which says, Sarvendriya gunabhasam. Through all my sense organs, I experience him alone. And whenever I have created him as an object other than me, and that is adhyaropa, because in Advaita, you cannot have two things. Sarvendra vivarjitam, and yet this world is not something apart from Brahman, because it is only a manifestation. And then Sarva Brit, again, he makes that Brahman is the supporter of all. He makes as Brahman as the supporter. At the same time, he says Asaktam, and he negates that Nirgunam Brahman. So you will see this type of adhyaropa, that means we create a world outside and then you negate this world, and this is called adhyaropa apavada, and all this needs teaching of the caliber of Swamiji to help us to understand that I alone am. Everything else is an appearance. Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. With this, we have come to the conclusion of the entire Bhagavad Gita, and towards the end of the 15th chapter, Shri Krishna takes you to a climax. Yo mam eva asammodaha janati purushottama. Krishna says, asammodaha. Moda means fool, sammodaha means a complete fool, asammodaha means completely wise. Now, if you are able to know me like a wise person knows me, Yomam eva asammoda janati. You have to know who is that Purushottama, who is that Kshetrajna, who is that consciousness principle. You become one with me. And then he has a doubt, and that is why we have 3 more chapters after that. He uses the word anaga for Arjuna. And he concludes the 15th chapter by saying, Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga. O Arjuna, I have given you the greatest of great secrets. But he uses the word anaga. Anaga means one who is free from all sin. Yetad buddhva buddhimam syat krita kritasya bharata. And if you are free from all blemish, you become krita kritasya. You attain to complete fulfillment. There is nothing more to do. There is nowhere to go. But Shri Krishna has a doubt. Not all of us can be anaga. That therefore there are 2 more chapters. Now comes the important chapters on values. And therefore from then on until the 18th chapter, from 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th chapters, 17th chapter, you have about the importance of values. And finally, there is a beautiful conclusion there in one verse. This verse, the verse 66, is called the Charama Shloka of the Bhagavad Gita. where all that you need to know is taught here. Sarva dharman parityagya mam ekam sharanam vraja. The word ekam means the one, the non-dual one. Surrender to the non-dual one. Sarva dharman parityagya. Here, dharma has to be taken as karma. Give up all karma means buddhi yukto jahatiha. You have to give up all punya, all papa, and work as if yoga karmasu kausalam. And then if you are able to attain that, why? Buddhi yukto. Now you have spiritual wisdom. You are a Gnana karma sannyasi. Aham tvam sarva papebhyo. All your sanchita karma, all your karmas, I will destroy. Shri Krishna says, your karma quotient is over. Mokshasyami ma suchaha. See, this is the concluding teaching. He says, don't be sorrowful. I promise you, I will ensure that you get Parama Purushartha. And what is the reaction of Arjuna? Then the next few verses, he says, Nashto moha smriti labdha. All my delusion is gone. And the greatest delusion is our true nature. We identify with the body, and with the body, we have all kinds of limitations. The Bhagavad Gita is a moksha shastra which helps us to disidentify from the body and recognize who I am in very essence. I will conclude with a story which I have told many times. And this story is about a certain Sufi master who, with a group of followers, are extremely hungry from travel all day. They are looking for some place where they can get some food. And it so happens that they come across a place where a rich man is hosting a banquet. And he is welcoming all the guests. And the Sufi saint, along with his followers, also go there. And the moment the rich man sees the Sufi saint, he says, but I don't know who you are. And he says, but I know myself. And then he thinks to himself, how unfortunate it would have been if the whole world knew me, but I did not know myself. Dear friends, the Bhagavad Gita helps us to know ourselves. More important than the whole world knowing who we are is whether I know myself. That is the highest gain of the Bhagavad Gita, and that gives us Parama Purushartha. The one who got this chance to listen to it directly was a charioteer of Dhritarashtra. And he concludes the Bhagavad Gita in such a refined way. And if a charioteer can get into such heights to be able to give this teaching, he says, Matir Mama, I am a simple person, but this is my opinion. Yatra Yogeshwara, Yatra Partho Dhanodhara. Wherever there is a combination of Yogeshwara, Krishna, that is the higher principles in me, along with that determination to do whatever I can do. I have all the abilities and all the industry to accomplish that. That means my effort, along with the grace of the Lord, Tatra, there, Shri, there is prosperity, Vijaya, success, Dhruva Niti, steady progress, Matir Mama. This is my opinion. Hari Om and Shri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Thank you, sir. Our Sashtanga pranams to you for explaining to us with such clarity and simplicity about how we can lead a worthy life by following the teachings of the Bhagavad Gita. We now know with conviction the three stages, karma, upasana, and gnana, the importance of the triad, effort, grace, and values, and the greatest knowledge itself, Tattvam Asi. Finally, you have taught us how to achieve the most difficult task, mastery of our minds, and thereby achieve our worldly goals too. With a deep sense of gratitude to our scriptures, our gurus, and the Lord, we conclude today's blessing of a session. Before we close, friends, all of you are aware that Param Vedanta has been offering Guru Dakshina to all our gurus twice a year, once during Guru Purnima and again during Gita Jayanti. You have been a part of this offering all through, and we are indeed grateful to you. Now, Gita Jayanti is here, and it is time for us to submit our offering to the lotus feet of our Gurus. I am sure you will join us in this Guru Seva and therefore appeal to kindly offer your generous reverential offerings to our Gurus. Needless to mention, the decision to donate and the amount of donation is purely voluntary and there is absolutely no compulsion. The entire amount of your offering will be offered, will be submitted to our Gurus. The mode of payment and the account details are displayed on the screen. It will also be sent to you in all the groups. Those of you who decide to offer may remit your Guru Dakshina to this account. The details of Guru Dakshina offered will be shared with you all. Thank you for being with us in this divine journey. Join us again on the 25th of December as we continue our Gita for Inner Transformation series. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you.